Hello, this is Holly Beatty, the Joyful Warrior, with a sneak peek of the Shaman in You Shaman Training Mastery Program. And today is day 11 of this sneak peek. I am sharing today a story about how the how working in the spiritual world affects our world that we live in day to day, and how the day to day world affects the spiritual world. And as you work shamanically, how you can do so purposefully to garden your life, your experiences uh, from a place of symbolism and feeling to affect concrete reality. So, in this story, I am just a couple of years out of having connected with the chief who blew my heart open. And I am newly single mother, and I'm working really hard, feeling overwhelmed, sense of insecurity, fear of future scarcity. And in general, I'm just thinking thoughts to myself about myself that are limiting. Will I be enough, or I'm not enough for this journey? That kind of thing. So, in the shaman training, we talk a lot about the field of the heart, also called the sacred garden, a place where you can go to do work on yourself, and also to enter into the spirit world in a safe hoop. And then from that safe hoop, work and travel beyond there to other dimensions of consciousness, and then come back there. So, this sacred garden, or the field of the heart, is essentially a dimension of our soul. And it is our soul in the spiritual realm as a reality. And so within this place, everything that's speaking to us, even the grass that we may perceive we're standing on, or an ocean that we're swimming in, is really our soul. And as we are there and immersed in this environment, and feel the stories and the teaching that come through the different beings that arrive and help us, we receive direct soul communication and fortification, healing. So, in this particular journey in my life, like I said, I'm not feeling that strong, that confident. And at this time, also in my life, I am journeying every day from about 4:30 to 6:15 in the morning, before my little ones wake up. I definitely received communication from the chief that if I slept past 4:15 4:30, that I would get bad dreams and be startled awake. And in my apprenticeship with him, he demanded that I wake up early, and put myself into a meditative state where I could receive training. So I was doing this every day for 2 years straight. And then most days after that. And usually I journey now probably once or twice a week, but still fairly common experience for me. And that, of course, doesn't include the dreams that come the communication that comes when I'm wide awake always, and when I'm working on people for healing, which is also deep. So you could say I spend a lot of my time in the no time place. In any event, this was still new for me at the time. I'm about 35, and I have only really experienced simple um, simple journeys with the chief, going to places that are immersive within my soul's landscape and that are teaching me about my soul and the nature of life, and also helping me to heal a great deal. So there's a aspect of the field of the heart which is known as a spiritual hut. Rudolf Steiner calls it a spiritual hut. It's essentially a dwelling place that we have that either appears or that we create through our imagination and then later sort of changes and grows from there. I, in the field of the heart, have a Japanese tea house that sits along a stream that goes out to the ocean that is fed by a beautiful waterfall in a tropical island. And it's here that I typically will go to first, where I sit. I arrive at the tea house and I sit and I make tea and sip the tea. I go through a ritual of grounding. There's candles in front of the tea house, the table where I'm drinking the tea, that are kind of nooked into the tea house. And one represents myself, and I can always look there to see how the flame of me is vibrating, if I am vibrant. And the other two flames are for my children. And behind me, actually, there's a wall of candles that's a lot like you would see in a Catholic church, where you can go and light a different candle when you're making prayers. And that also emerged for me as a place to keep track of the people that I'm serving, and also in my family, for saying prayers and keeping track of their vitality, seeing if they need a little bit of help from me. So there's a lot of ritual for me in this tea house, and I go through a process that's really the same each time, usually. There's always room for surprise when you're working in the shaman territory. You never know what you might find or what might emerge. And that's a little what happened on this particular journey. In my life, like I said, I was very distraught and thinking negative things to myself, about myself, really, feeling afraid. And when I went into the field of the heart to connect with myself in the tea house, instead of it being, as it usually is, sacred and peaceful and welcoming and inviting, there were two or three rowdy, sort of uh, bantering, drinking and smoking guys like you would see in a bar late on a Friday or Saturday night, who maybe crass and cussing and also bumping into things and breaking things, like just basically being in a drunken stupor of self-induced humor, but also having like a lot of disregard for everything around them. essentially just really negative energy. So that is what was inside of the tea house when I arrived. And instead of arriving inside like I normally do, I arrived outside and standing on the rocks and then looking at basically like the drunken sailors that were breaking up the joint, that were smashing things and having too much fun inside of my sacred starting place, my spirit hut. So I knew at that time that this was a teaching moment and showing me an external representation of what was going on inside of myself, right? So I was really the one that invited these disturbers of the peace inside of my sacred space, my vessel, my consciousness. That didn't mean that I really knew how to handle it or how to interact with them. So I called the chief to me in the dream, in the journey, and he stood beside me and smiled and stayed silent. Stayed silent, waiting for me to come up with the ideas of what I should be doing in this moment to clear my own, inner dwelling place, removing the drunken disconnection. So I asked the landscape itself, the actual landscape, the garden itself, the field of the heart, the soul that is an expression, has consciousness and you can communicate with it just directly. And it can shape shift or bring you things to help you further the journey. So at this moment, I put my consciousness in my own heart and I sent out a request to the field itself to guide me in what to do. Well, wouldn't you know, a team of warriors came, Hawaiian warriors. uh, my sacred garden in my own imagination was in part created uh, on a place, from a place, a landscape in Maui that's very special to me. And so the energy that I connect to in it is Hawaiian. And of course, later on, I would meet Pele and have a lot of connection with the islands as I do today and with Pele directly. But at this time, I didn't really know Pele. I just had been to this beautiful retreat center in Haiku in Maui, where there is a private waterfall that went down to the sea level and then out to the shore. And I had climbed down with a friend and walked the length of the stream up towards the waterfall, and then actually rock climbed up the cliff face back onto the ledges of the cliffs some years before. And when I first went into the spiritual landscape, I just at first I just saw my own feet, but then I happened to be standing on stones that were next to a stream, and that stream turned into be this stream coming from this waterfall. So is the Hawaiian landscape. So the landscape itself, the field itself, materialized these beautiful Hawaiian warriors. And they began to chant the E ho mai. E ho mai. There's some really beautiful versions of the E ho mai chant, just sacred conduit prayer for aligning the best of intentions of creation with a place or oneself, asking for sacredness. They were chanting and they were walking towards the tea hut. And they went inside, and as they grabbed each of the drunken assailants of my garden, the warriors and the assailants vanished. So they grabbed them and then dematerialized together. So that when it was all done, there was the song of the chant left in the vibration of the space, but there wasn't the warriors or the drunken brawlers. Something sacred came into my inner landscape and cleared it of the negative energy that was there, that was here. And something interesting happened right after. There's a little spider right there next to me. I'll let him listen to the story. So what was interesting about that moment was that instead of returning into the hut like I usually would when they had all left, I was still standing next to the chief, and I looked towards him and he looked at me and then over to the hut, and then it burst into flames and it went all the way to the ground. And I was confused because I thought it was all cleared up and I didn't understand why it needed to be burned. But then I saw in the sky horses, white horses galloping towards me. And they were pulling a chariot. As they got closer, I could see that they were pulling a chariot. It was a golden chariot. It reminded me of the stories of Arjuna from the Bhagavad Gita. And it stopped, hovering just over the top of the stream in front of me. And I looked at the chief, and there was an affirmation that I should step into it. So I did. And the horses took off again into the sky, into the air, and it went up and up in a spiral. And then as it was in this topmost level of the cliffs up above, it turned back towards where it came from, and there was a palace, a golden palace on the far, far edge overlooking the sea. And that's where they took me. And so my hut went from being next to the stream in that morning's journey to being on top of the cliff in this beautiful palace, golden where there was fountains and I could see the whales and the dolphins. And there was a feeling, a thought feeling that this is where my mind needed to go. I needed to elevate my thinking. And as I stood there looking out back towards the chief, who was still on the rocks below, I could just sort of make out the shadow and perceive the dream rock that he stood next to, that I always laid on to meditate when I was dreaming inside the dream, and the waterfall, that I could go back there. I could go back there and work from that place, but that I needed to elevate the place where I was starting from. I needed to see myself differently, to allow myself to realize the princess, the goddess within me, and not be allowing my thoughts to break up what's sacred inside of me. So in future journeys, the tea house returned. The tea house returned, and I could go there. But now I had a palace, and I was shown that that's what I should be expecting from life, really. Not just the minimal of what I could think of that I could receive so that I would be all right, but that I could receive more than I could imagine for myself if I let myself receive what God had in mind for me, what life had in store for me. You know, at the time I was actually living in a very beautiful house. And I had received that very synchronistically. And there was abundance around me. So I needn't think that I would be experiencing scarcity. But I was raised by a single mother for a long time, and then by a father who worked really hard, but was gone a lot most of the time. And so, having experienced that, that broken home that so many of us have, I was projecting into my experience memories of my own wounding. But the chief was showing me, the garden was showing me, creation was showing me, life was showing me, God, love was showing up for me in a way within this landscape of my soul. It wasn't just as simple as drawing a picture with my imagination of being in a small house and then drawing a picture with my imagination and being in a big house. It wasn't like that. Everything in the shamanic experience is full of body felt meaning when you're in your body, when you're not leaving your body with your light form or your soul to somehow connect with the spirit world out of body, but you're in your body and your senses are working so that you can perceive all of the communication that's wanting to come to you from your soul directly. At this time in my life, this dream had a big impact. Not only did the feeling of the horses and the Arjuna golden chariot bolster me and help to enkindle more of the warrior in me at that moment, which is what I really needed, was to see that I was a warrior and that I could be so joyfully, but also that my external environment could change from the journey. And that's what happened. I didn't change houses at that moment, but I did land a contract or two in the work that I was doing as a freelance facilitator of team building and leadership development for state agencies at the time. I did receive a couple great contracts that were monumental and bolstering my abundance at that time, and just having the confidence to go for it, really. My perspective was elevated, just as my hut was elevated from a lower place to a higher space in my journey. So working in the spirit world is a wonderful way to become a gardener of your life in every way. And finding out how to feel so that you can perceive all of the communication that wants to come through as you're having these spiritual visualization, somatic transformations is wonderful. It's a wonderful way to live in an empowered way from your own self-direction. So you live with your heart open and you're able to perceive direct communication from your soul and from your spirit, which work together but are not the same thing. And so you become a free spirit. The true meaning of what it means to be a free spirit, free of the conditioning or feeling like you don't know what to do, because you do know, because you're listening. You're listening to everything that is coming to you from the part of you that can see things that are future and past and coming and going and intersecting into your life and what will give your life the greatest meaning and beauty. Happy day 11. Hope you enjoyed this sharing. The little grandmother spider is walking around my table listening. And that's I'll have to journey now and go meet the consciousness of this beautiful spider and ask what she's bringing me. And now it's in your journey as well, in your realities. Maybe the medicine of spider wants to come to you. You can close your eyes and seek to connect with the spider and see what she wants to weave and to help you remember. And there's always a message. There's always a message. Everything is bringing a sign, a symbol, an omen, a next step, a next step. Tomorrow, I'll be starting the Death Arrow, and I'll just start with the overview tomorrow and a little bit of background about it. And then between December 12th and December 31st, in this series of the sneak peek, no, not the 31st, the 21st, the solstice, we'll be working with that process. And there will be things that you can do, journaling and some artistic activity. And so I hope you will enjoy it and that you'll join me. Remember to give a like and comment if you like some of these videos, and to keep following along, and maybe even join me for the year-long training, The Shaman in You. I would love to have you. Until next time.